Gazzetta, Football Italia, from the Trout Lake. Cue titles. Well, James is out doing an exclusive on Gigi Riva, a fantastic player in his time and a hero in Italian soccer. Also, we have all the goals of last weekend, and we have the highlights of Udinese versus Milan. But first to this.
Coming up, the return of a hero, Marco van Basten, back as Milan bid to stay at the top of Serie A. James Richardson goes behind the headlines for all the week's news. And he talks to the new boss of Fiorentina after the sacking of Aldo Agroppi after just 112 days. Every one of last weekend's goals, including another from Ruben Sosa, as Inter keep up the pressure at the top. We're giving away tickets for the European Cup Winners' Cup final and your last chance to win a trip to Italy in this week's competition. After that injury at Wembley, Paul Gascoigne retreats to calmer waters to reflect on the England game, his injury and his hopes for the rest of the season. And in a vital World Cup week for Italy, we talk to one of the country's soccer legends, one-time goal-scoring hero Gigi Riva, who is current national team manager.
Well, it's been a bit of an experience of a week for me. We had an important point where we should have had 2 points at home to Holland. I'm due in for an operation. Haven't caught a trout. Missed the Tokyo trip, and I'm really looking forward to getting back to soccer. But first, here are some of the highlights of Udinese versus Milan.
Udinese may not be one of Serie A's most potent forces, but at their Friuli stadium they've beaten the likes of Inter, Napoli and Parma, whilst Juventus and Lazio have both been held here. A significant proportion of Udinese's goals have come from number 9, Abel Balbo, an Argentinian who's now second top goal scorer in Serie A and looking to entice a major Italian club to buy him in the summer. Milan are finding their path to the title paved with banana skins. Another slip today and the Italian bookmakers could start taking bets again on the destiny of the championship. No Hullet or Rijkaard, both away on international duty, but a third Dutchman, Marco van Basten, is fit enough to be included as one of the substitutes today. Lentini is a leading goal scorer in Milan's starting 11 with 7 goals. Delano. 11 is Aranio. Savicevic. Getting past Calori. Lentini's waiting here. He knows he should have at least aimed his shot at the target. It's a powder puff finish for the world's most expensive player, and every time he misses a chance like that, he'll be reminded of that fact. Well, I wonder if that miss by Milan will prove costly and give Udinese hope of winning this game. Balbo. We've reached the midway point of the first half. Free kick goes the way of the home side. Incidentally, Udinese's 23 points this season have mainly been earned at home. Can they trouble Sebastiano Rossi now with his free kick? Balbo darts into the penalty area at speed. Rossi has already taken about 7 or 8 steps. Of course, only 4 are allowed. The referee allows him to get away with it. But doesn't allow Costa Curta to get away with that challenge. So, some more defending for the Italian champions, who no doubt also have their minds on the European Cup final next month. team who hope to scale the Twin Peaks are being forced back here. Delano with a free kick. Balbo. Oh, Orlando with a splendid drive. Tipped away by Rossi. Orlando struck an upright last week in the defeat against Atalanta. Went close again here. And Balbo almost with a scoring pass. Van Basten is being warmed up right at the start of this second half, and one suspects he'll be on very soon. Lentini. Dragged back towards Boban. No way through. Tchaikovsky first to react to the loose ball. Savicevic. Free kick to Milan. And Delano complaining to the referee, he was held back as he challenged for the ball. And Luigi Collina indicates Milan can now make their change, and Marco Van Basten is back. Sidelined since December with that troublesome ankle injury. He replaces Savicevic. Delano. Oh, that was a crunching tackle by Baresi to put Milan onto the front foot. Now, here's Van Basten. Lentini arriving, hooked away by Calori, the stopper of the Udinese defence. And already Marco Van Basten is causing problems. Evarni to take the corner. Easy catch there by Di Sarno. Oh, that's an elementary mistake by Rossi, who started Milan's last 17 Serie A games since Antonioli's injury. This was a quite horrendous slice of the ball. Well, Sunday golfers get it wrong every week. But Rossi knows he should have done better there. Delano's corner. So Daniele Massaro is going to come on here for Lentini. Really has Massaro scored that invaluable goal for Milan in the Champions League against Gothenburg, which ultimately meant Milan going to the final. Lentini certainly less than happy about being substituted. Nava. Can Milan just inflict a crucial wound on Udinese late on? Boban. Van Basten goes scurrying for the ball. That was a very harsh decision against the Udinese defender, Calori. Can Milan make capital of this free kick? Plenty of players forward here. Van Basten. Van Basten again! That's a splendid stop by Di Sarno. And Marco Van Basten almost crowned his return to the Milan team with a goal of exceptional quality. A stunning volley, saved superbly by Di Sarno. Still no way through for Milan. Van Basten waiting patiently for the cross. Here it comes. It's over the head of Evani. Maldini. Ooh. Hauled back by Rosito. Boban. Don't think that's allowed either. Is this going to be the knockout blow? Disappointing free kick by Boban. Well, if one of these two teams is going to pinch it, it looks like it's going to be Milan. They really have upped their work rate over the last 10 minutes and are finding plenty of gaps now in the Udinese defence. Desideri hammers it clear. There was a suspicion of handball too when that ball was floated into the box. And look how comfortable Van Basten looks on the ball. Just a shake of his hips and he'd found his way around a couple of defenders. 0-0, only Milan's second scoreless draw of the season, and their path to the championship is proving more of an obstacle course than a dual carriageway.
All the rest of the Serie A goal action to come, including the latest victory for Juventus. And reports today link Juve in a swap deal with their city neighbours Torino. David Platt for the Belgian star Enzo Schifo. Well, we'll see. But in the meantime, here's James Richardson with the rest of the week's news.
Good morning. Well, we've just been watching the headlines of that distinctly unedifying Milan 0-0 draw with Udinese. And of course, while they were having their 7th consecutive game without a win, over at the San Siro, Inter were beating Ancona 3-0. That narrows the gap between the two clubs down to just 4 points, with a nail-biting 5 games left to go in Serie A. And on Monday, Corriere dello Sport asked the question, Inter, do you believe it? The answer, yes, no, maybe. Ruben Sosa says it can be done. Inter can catch Milan. Inter's president Pellegrini, however, says no, they can't. All right, Inter have made up 7 points on Milan in the last 6 games alone. But the return of Marco van Basten, Milan's big weapon, has the champions breathing a lot easier as they head towards their next game, which is in 2 weeks' time against Ancona. While Van Basten makes his return, it's time for Aldo Agroppi, coach of Fiorentina, to face that final curtain. Agroppi is the 6th coaching victim of this Serie A season, and he got his marching orders from the Fiorentina presidents, the Cecchi after the 3-0 defeat by Juventus last Sunday. His crime was not so much the defeat, but the decision to disobey the Cecchi instructions and leave Massimo Orlando out of the team against Juventus. There are those who mourn the passing of Agroppi and those who quite frankly don't. Arrigo Sacchi, the national team coach, for example, here on the cover of Wednesday's Gazzetta dello Sport, "Dear Agroppi, you reap what you sow." Sacchi was then asked by journalists if he could see Agroppi returning to his career in television, to which Sacchi replied, probably radio would be better. Well, equally heartbroken was Stefan Effenberg of the Fiorentina team, who played his ex-coach this glowing tribute. "Finally, we're free," he said. "It's best that it's ended like this." With Agroppi, there was very little sentiment in the team. Well, evidently, Agroppi himself was in dramatic form on the cover of Wednesday's Corriere dello Sport. "Goodbye football," he declares amongst tears. However, by page 3 inside, he cheered up considerably, even cracking the odd joke or two. "I hope my replacement, the youth team coach Chiarucci, loses the next 3 games," he told reporters. "That way I can return for the grand finale." Well, what exactly Agroppi will do now is something of a mystery. Before taking over from Gigi Riva at Fiorentina in January, Agroppi had a tremendously successful career as a very sarcastic TV soccer pundit. However, now with just 2 wins in his 15 games at Fiorentina, he's got about as much credibility for the role as, for example, Paul Gascoigne advertising Rennies. Well, on to Pescara now, and what news of the losses for Lira scandal that's been engulfing the Adriatic town? Well, there's been no actual official news this week. Corriere dello Sport on Tuesday published this article, The Witch's Question, the case gets bigger, which suggested that players from Torino and Udinese will soon be involved in the investigations. There's been no official news, though, this week, and the inquiry hopes to be publishing its findings this weekend. We have had a verdict, though, this week in the Caniggia cocaine scandal. The Argentine pleaded guilty to the Federation's tribunal of smoking a cocaine cigarette and has received now a suspension of 13 months. A year up in smoke, as the Gazzetta dello Sport rather sensitively put it. Well, Caniggia will be free to play again from May next year onwards, which means that he should be available to play in USA 94, the next World Cup. Well, that's all from the newspapers for right now. Coming up after the break, we'll have our usual Serie A goals roundup, a chat with one of Italy's all-time great international strikers, Gigi Riva, the man they nicknamed, in fact, the Rumble of Thunder, plus comments from the man who's currently inheriting that nickname, if for somewhat different reasons, Paul Gascoigne, and, of course, our competition. That's all coming up in a couple of minutes, so see you then.
Welcome back. Cup Winners' Cup final tickets to be won in our competition, but first, a roundup of Serie A goal action from Gary Blue.
Sampdoria in all white hadn't defeated Atalanta in Bergamo in 20 years. 33 minutes in, and Sampdoria were in front. Montero, usually so confident at the back, was punished for his error by Lombardo. It's 3 goals now for Lombardo in as many games. Atalanta's problems continued in the second half. The claims for a penalty for Lana's challenge on Gans were denied by the referee, who then took exception to Rambaudi's abusive comments and sent him off. Only the upright denied Jugovic here. Then, suddenly, the home side drew level through Minardo. The midfield player calmly converted Peroni's pass. However, his celebrations were soon cut short when Sampdoria regained their lead almost immediately. Bertarelli, the scorer. The substitute's goal keeps Sampdoria in a strong position for a UEFA Cup place as Atalanta lose at home for the first time in 11 months. The final score, Atalanta 1, Sampdoria 2. Torino in the all-white strip should have taken an early lead in Foggia. Paolo Poggi failed to match his impressive run with a goal. Foggia have been fighting to stave off relegation for most of the season, but have virtually assured themselves a place in Italy's top flight after securing 5 points out of 6 in their last 3 games. They dominated this match, but couldn't find the finishing to round off some fine approach play. Here Mandelli squanders another opportunity. Then Cagliini's speculative efforts brought an end to this disappointing contest. Torino haven't won in Serie A now for 7 games. Brescia in the blue shirts last visited Genoa 5 years ago in a second division fixture. This time both clubs were fighting to preserve Serie A status, and Sabah was on hand to give Brescia an invaluable lead after 5 minutes. It took a series of poor clearances by Genoa's defence. The ball eventually reached Sabah via the head of captain Bonametti. Romanian's second goal in consecutive weeks gave Brescia hopes of their first away win since November. Coming up, Signorini's weekly attempt to inflict grievous bodily harm. From the free kick, Hagi fires wide. It was then a case of what you can do, I can do better from Bortolazzi. Cousin with the save. Genoa have been going through a mini revival of late, and their third coach this term, Claudio Marcelli, just 1 defeat in their last 7 games. Fortunato had failed to treble Landucci in Brescia's goal, but 3 minutes into first half injury time, Thomas Scoravi scored the equalising goal. The giant Czech striker was playing in front of observers from Bayern Munich, who are considering making an offer for Scoravi in the coming weeks. In the second half, Bortolazzi's pass almost produced an own goal from the young defender Negro. Spagnuolo in Genoa's goal would have been dreading each moment as she was in possession. Then Hagi's corner almost embarrassed the goalkeeper again. Genoa appeared the hungrier of the two sides in the closing stages, but their attempts on Brescia's goal proved food and drink for the goalkeeper Landucci. And when he was finally beaten by Caricola's header, Domini was perfectly placed to keep the scores level at 1-1. Genoa stay 1 place above the relegation zone. Brescia have failed to win now for 6 games. Next to the San Siro, where Inter were aiming to reduce Milan's 5-point lead at the top of Serie A against Ancona. And they couldn't have wished for a better start when Ancona's uncertain defending allowed Bergami to score after 9 minutes. Sousa, D'Agostini and Schillaci were all involved before the club captain found the target. Schillaci and Sousa have formed a fearsome partnership in recent weeks. Toto's guile accompanied Sousa's accuracy for goal number 2. One wonders how Inter would have fared earlier in the season if the partnership had been allowed to flourish. Then Fontolan's juggling act and pass released Schillaci, who found his path to goal, blocked by Nista. Ancona did manage an assault on Zenga's goal, but the flamboyant goalkeeper denied Centofanti. Lajos Datari then forced Zenga into action once again. Into the second half now, and the away side continued to pepper Inter's goal. Vecchiola had that effort. But Inter's most lethal weapon has proved to be their counter-attacking this year. Ruben Sosa provide the ammunition for goal number 3. The Uruguayan international is the most dangerous striker in Italy at present. He celebrated his 27th birthday with his 14th goal in his last 13 matches. Inter's victory cuts Milan's lead to just 4 points.
Well, England's bright performance at Wembley on Wednesday still failed to bring them 2 vital World Cup points. Their Group 2 qualifier ended in a 2-2 draw against Holland. And for Paul Gascoigne, his match ended in agony at half-time and an unplanned trip to hospital. We caught up with him, relaxing and reflecting on the midweek events.
When you get big games like that, people want you to win, especially in England's case, they expect you to win. 3-4-0 just about every time. And I think come Wednesday night everyone was relaxed. When we got closer to the ground, the bus started to buzz a bit, seeing the crowd, seeing the lads join each other up, and no doubt when we got in that dressing room everyone was ready to go, and I think it showed it. Especially the first half, I didn't see any of the second half, but especially the first half I thought was the best England performance I have seen for a while. The way, not just physical, right, the way we played, passed about, got the crosses and shots on target, and we were lucky not to be 4 up. I felt sharp, I felt good, I was doing the right thing. I was dribbling when I had to, knocking it off, got crosses in, and all of a sudden from the score I got an elbow in the face. I can't remember much of it, I just remember getting up for it, which come on the side of my face, A bit disappointed because I felt dizzy, my jaw felt very, very sore, and I couldn't really take any much part in the game, After the game I saw the specialist, they x-rayed my jaw, and unfortunate, I need an operation. They're just going to nick the side of my head and they're going to go down with a little metal rod and put my jaw back into place a bit. It is sore. I'm upset because I've got to miss at least 2 or 3 weeks, 3 weeks minimum maybe. But hopefully I can be right for the remaining games for Lazio, or maybe the last game, or especially the England games, which we have Poland again and we have Norway, and they're vital for us. I want to keep my spirits up, I think this is my 8th operation in 3 years. The guy, obviously, the people say, he yelled at us. I don't know if he meant it or not. If he did, then, for me, for a start, it's football, I'm not going to go charging the guy. I'm not going to, do him for this and that. I've just got to get into football, accept it as football. It's up to the referee if he thought it was bad or not, and then it's his decision. I was in agony on Wednesday night, and I went to the doctor, and soon the doctor seen it, he said straight away that I need an operation. I'm not worried, just worried about the metal rod getting put in my head, but as people said it needs my head looking in too, and no doubt I'll be having that very shortly. I hope like before I can come back bouncing again and happy. I need the operation, that's life, and I will be back again, ready to play for hopefully the remaining games for Lazio, maybe squeezing 1 or 2, and ready to back for England. I'm really looking forward to it, and we will do it, don't worry, everyone back in England.
Welcome back. An exclusive interview with one of Italy's soccer legends coming up, but first, let's complete the goal action from Serie A.
There's not a great deal of love lost between Juventus and Fiorentina. There was plenty of passion, though, in this game. Vialli's handball, the first real talking point of the match. This goal ruled out. Vialli tried to persuade himself it was an authentic effort. Effenberg's ball to Baiano through the inside right channel almost brought the first goal. In the wet conditions, long-range shooting was bound to be effective. Peruzzi, who's just returned to the Juventus team after injury, won't be proud of that save. This one, though, was more straightforward for Peruzzi, standing in for Rampula, who damaged an ankle in the midweek UEFA Cup tie against Paris Saint-Germain. Juventus are apparently keen to sign Stefan Effenberg in the summer. This could have added a few million lira to his price tag. Now, this is how to hold a long-range shot. Maraggini hanging on to Mola's drive. The introduction of substitute Paolo Di Canio sparked Juventus into life. Marocchi, Juventus' left-back, makes it 1-0. The wet conditions had a part to play in the goal. Watch how goalkeeper Maraggini slips and ultimately injures himself. Di Canio tried to repeat his scoring pass, but Casiraghi hits an advertising hoarding instead of the net. Julio Cesar then denied Karobi, who was well into his shooting stride. On a grey day, it took a grey-haired Ravanelli to fire Juventus into a winning lead. Ravanelli had just come on as a substitute, so both Juventus' replacements had made a telling impact on the game. Fiorentina must have known it wasn't to be their day, as Laudrup is denied here. With Fiorentina's players longing for the final whistle and a hot shower, Juventus had the last opportunity to improve their goal difference in the last minute. Ravanelli is fouled by the reserve goalkeeper Manini. And Luppi is the first to congratulate Ravanelli. Well, I imagine that's what he's saying. The slow-motion replay shows the goalkeeper's boot making contact with the player. Roberto Baggio, a former Fiorentina player who'd already missed 2 penalties this season and indeed refused to take one against his former club 2 seasons ago, makes it 3-0. It's 5 wins on the trot now for Juventus, 3 in the league, 2 in the UEFA Cup.
We happened to be in Florence this week when
Next,
the news of
Lazio.
Aldo Agroppi's dismissal broke. Now, he hadn't done well for the club, just 2 wins in his 15 games, but I wondered how the people of the town felt about him going, and also how they felt about the Cecchigori's running of the club.
Secondo me Agroppi era buono a parlare alla televisione, ma
mandare via Radice fu l'errore che ha fatto Cecchigori.
C'è un cosa che può salvare la Fiorentina che sta per andare in B? Vuoi riprendere i Radice?
I giocatori? No, i giocatori.
Sono soldi, uno dovrebbe dare il massimo sempre. È che hanno problemi psicologici. Come si fa ad avere problemi psicologici quando uno guadagna 1 miliardo a stagione? Come si fa? Non è giusto.
Finire il campionato il prima possibile. È l'unica cosa che può fare del bene alla Fiorentina.
So, some blame the players, some blame Aldo Agroppi, some even blame the Cecchigoris themselves. The man, though, who now has to try and bring Fiorentina back from the brink of Serie B is the new coach, Luciano Chiarugi.
l'importante adesso è cercare di fare più punti possibili. Chiaro che bisogna trovare i giusti equilibri, la giusta concentrazione, perché credo che sia difficile nello stesso tempo, però la caratura della squadra è buona. Quando una squadra ha 5 nazionali credo che abbia potenzialità per poter sicuramente essere in una situazione di classifica migliore.
Next, Lazio in blue against Pescara, who have one of the most imaginative away kits in Serie A, but also one of the leakiest defences. Signori and Riedler couldn't find a way through early on. Lazio were without Gascoigne and Vinter both involved in the midweek international at Wembley. Here's Marco Lin going close for the home club. Pescara have been doing this all season. That's why they're bottom of the table. Favali takes advantage of the mix-up to make it 1-0. Favali's often in the shadow of some of Lazio's big-name stars. This, though, was his first goal of the season. Pescara needed to win this game to avoid relegation. Here's Dunga testing the goalkeeper Orsi. Pescara did win a penalty 3 minutes before half-time. Lusardi's challenge upends Allegri. Lazio were complaining that Favali was fouled by Dunga before the penalty kick was awarded. There's little doubt that this was a foul, though, by Lusardi. Allegri equalises as Pescara hold out for a miracle. Into the second half now, and Riedler almost makes capital out of some uncertain goalkeeping by Marchioro. Dunga's free kick threatened to give Pescara a surprise lead. Allegri follows up, but not in. This goal was ruled out for offside, although take your pick which of the three Lazio players had strayed into an offside position. This time Lazio did look offside. Stropper is stopped by Ferretti illegally. And in stoppage time at the end of the game, Beppe Signori scores his 23rd goal of the season. Maybe so late in the game, the incident didn't really matter. Pescara believe, firstly, Stropper was offside, and secondly, there was no shove on him. Lazio win and are looking forward now to a crunch meeting with Inter. Pescara lose and are relegated. Napoli haven't looked back since Milan visited Naples in November and won by 5-1. Napoli haven't lost at home since. They were playing Cagliari. The speed of Moriero almost proved decisive here, and the uncertain defending of Nela. Pollicano was a little slow off the mark to get onto this through ball, although Napoli did win a penalty midway through the first half. Fonseca, playing against his old club, falls over Yelpo's challenge, and then nearly falls over in disbelief as his penalty pinballs to safety. Why Moriero didn't cross the ball instead of trying an impossible shot, goodness only knows. Pollicano's efforts were equally selfish here. Pollicano, Zola and Fonseca combined here to put Cagliari's defence on red alert. Zola tried to steal in around the back of Cagliari's defence. First Fonseca, then Ferrara were denied. Napoli had another penalty appeal turned down here. Zola impeded this time. But a couple of minutes from full-time, Napoli secured a win that keeps their UEFA Cup hopes alive for next season, with this goal from Zola. It had been a long, hard slog for Napoli, and in the end, one of their most effective contributors contributed with a very effective strike. Napoli are now unbeaten in 7 Serie A games and are one of the informed teams in Italy at the moment. Roma in red were unbeaten in 13 games going into this meeting with Cup Winners' Cup finalist Parma. The home side almost took an early lead through Pizzi. Now this is a beautifully contrived goal, one no doubt Parma have been working on in training. Ozio's devastating strike put Parma ahead after 4 minutes. Ozio was starting the game in place of Asprilla, who's currently injured. Mihailovic's corner almost brought an unlikely goal. Then Aldair had 2 attempts to tackle Di Chiara. The first was ineffective, the second was illegal. Di Chiara's forced his way into the Italian national team this season. He's been understudy to Maldini for the last few months. Pizzi makes it 2-0 after 14 minutes. Mihailovic's free kicks have been a feature of the Roma season so far. This time Mihailovic turns provider, though Muzzi can't force his header in. Rizzitelli takes on 5 white shirts and the Parma goalkeeper, with the inevitable consequences. Into the second half now, and Roma's efforts became increasingly futile. This was arguably the best save in Serie A of the weekend. Bellotta denying Hessler. Bellotta got his fist to the corner, but could do little about the shot turned back in by Aldair. It was somewhat ironic that Aldair, who'd given away a penalty earlier on in the game, now had given Roma hope. Three minutes later and Parma increased their lead. Roma's defence treated the ball like a hot potato, and Ozio scored his second goal of the match. Once again, Aldair had a decisive hand in the decisive goal of the match. A fairly innocuous back pass before Chivoni upsets the apple cart. Parma are now joint third in Serie A, with only goal difference separating them, Juventus and Lazio.
Well, Milan's recent run of 5 draws and 2 defeats means their lead has been whittled down from 11 points at one stage to just 4 with 5 games left. Inter, at the same time, have registered 5 wins and 2 draws, their last defeat coming way back on December the 12th at Lazio. So who's going to win the Scudetto? Well, obviously the odds favour Milan, especially as their last 5 games seem the easier. Next weekend they travel to relegation-threatened Ancona. Then they face a Roma team who've already knocked them out of the Italian Cup before the run-in against Cagliari, Brescia and Genoa. Inter have a tough one against Lazio next weekend, our live match on Channel 4, before meeting Genoa, Foggia, Parma and Torino. So, what does our resident Italian expert think?
Well, as you know, AC Milan, as we all know, have stormed well ahead of the championship this season, but slowly creeping up behind has been Inter. Inter have done fantastic. No one really said much about them and just concentrated on AC Milan winning another championship. Well, there's only about 6 games each, and Inter Milan are only 4 points behind. I've looked at the fixtures, and Inter have us to play, and AC Milan have Roma to play, so they're 2 tight games. But looking at the fixtures and look who they've got, I think Milan might just win it by a couple of points. But it's going to be a very, very tight finish, whereas a month ago you thought AC Milan stormed away with it. So everyone keep watching Channel 4 because you're in for a great finish.
Of course, it's not just about the championship. Vital UEFA Cup places are also at stake, and Lazio, Juventus, Parma and Sampdoria are among the best placed challengers here. There's still a dogfight going on at the bottom, with Fiorentina in 13th place and in turmoil again this week with the sacking of their second manager this season, amongst those in dire danger of joining the already doomed Pescara and Ancona. A lot could depend, as it has all season, on Abel Balbo. The Argentinian striker has scored an amazing 20 of Udinese's 34 goals this season. Whatever happens, he's certain to be playing Serie A football next season. Currently, he's still behind Beppe Signori, who's led the scoring charts from the first day of the season. But Balbo is still very much in the running for the Italians' Golden Boot award. No Serie A fixtures, of course, tomorrow, because Italy are playing Switzerland this evening. The Group 1 table shows the significance of this match, especially after Portugal's 5-0 crushing of Scotland in midweek. James Richardson has been to the Italian training camp this week to get the views of one of Italy's greatest stars.
Gigi Riva, the Italian national team's all-time leading scorer, the man who put
the town of Cagliari on the footballing map, and it's not an exaggeration to say a living legend of Italian football. Riva's right foot was basically just there for walking with, but his left foot earned him a place in the history books, capocannoniere titles and a starring role in Italy's national team alongside the likes of Capello, Zoff and Gianni Rivera. Now a trim 48, Riva works for the Italian Federation as team manager for the national team. He joins them on their trips abroad and at training at their centre at Coverciano near Florence. And it was here, in fact, at Coverciano that we met the legendary Mr. Riva. I asked him first about how he felt about the progress of Arrigo Sacchi's Italian team.
Questa nazionale ha avuto un inizio abbastanza difficile, un po' complicato, per via del tipo di gioco nuovo che è stato proposto. Però ritengo che in questo ultimo periodo abbia dimostrato di aver assimilato molto bene schemi, tipo di gioco, e sta ottenendo anche degli ottimi risultati.
As team manager, Gigi Riva sits on the right hand of Sacchi and acts as representative of the players to the federation and vice versa. To be honest though, his role is mostly symbolic, and when country doesn't call, Riva's time is spent back in his beloved Sardinia, his adopted homeland and the place where he made his footballing name.
Sono tante cose che ricordi con piacere, io credo, col Cagliari, lo scudetto che vincemmo nel 70, quando nel mondo nessuno sapeva neanche dove era la Sardegna, dove era Cagliari.
Riva arrived in 1962 at Cagliari in what was then a Serie B squad and immediately led them into the top division for the first time in the club's history. By 1969, the club had moved up to second in Serie A behind his blazing left foot, and a year later, Cagliari lifted their first and still their only Scudetto. His success led to offers from Milan, Inter and most of all Juventus. Several times, in fact, Cagliari were ready to sell their star, but Riva always refused to leave the club.
Diverse volte sono state possibilità, ma ormai avevo fatto una scelta di vita e mi sono fermato a Cagliari. Mi identifico molto nel carattere sardo, abbastanza riservato,
che non sanno magari?
Riservato, direi non molto espansivo, possibilmente coerente con le proprie idee, al contrario così di quello che può essere magari altri tipi di persona, però quello che apprezzo più di tutti è la riservatezza, l'educazione e il rispetto.
Even if he's not actually indigenous, Riva is about as close to the Sardinian archetype as you'll find. Honest, upstanding, but not much disposed to talking. It took him 5 months, in fact, to agree to give us this interview. Riva's strike rate of 35 goals in his 42 national games is Italy's all-time record, and leaves even Roberto Baggio's tally of 17 in 28 games looking pale by comparison. In contrast to the flair of some of his other national teammates, notably Gianni Golden Boy Rivera, Riva was a plain old-fashioned cannon. He played with the national team from 1965 to 1973. He was with the Azzurri in '68 in Rome when they won the first ever European Cup. And 2 years later, he was at the heart of the Italy side that fought through to the World Cup finals in Mexico. Riva, in fact, scored in the semi-final against Germany that earned Italy a place in the final against Brazil. In that match, though, the Azzurri came away virtually empty-handed, beaten by the South Americans 4-1. Is it painful now looking back at that 1970 World Cup?
Resta una grande esperienza, anzi direi una splendida esperienza, perché noi vincemmo il campionato d'Europa nel 1968 e il secondo posto nei mondiali in Messico. In Italia era dal 1938 che non si vinceva più niente, quindi il fatto che così siamo riusciti a portare un campionato europeo e un vice campione del mondo in Italia fu un periodo di grande soddisfazione.
Riva was never one to avoid the knocks, and his career in fact was hampered by leg injuries, notably 2 broken legs. This first came in March '67 against Portugal in Rome. In November of that same year, in fact, Riva was back to score 3 goals against Cyprus, no mean recovery in those days. In October 1970, he received another fracture, this time against Austria, and that break and later injuries would hamper and finally end his playing career in 1975.
In the England team right now, we got Paul Gascoigne, who keeps battling off injuries and when he can, often makes a difference for the team. How do you rate his progress here this year?
Secondo me è un grande giocatore, sicuramente un grandissimo giocatore, però effettivamente ancora non ha trovato quella continuità, ha dei numeri però si ferma a quello, magari delle buone partite e poi non lo si vede per altre 2 o 3 partite, si vede la stoffa del grande giocatore, però manca di continuità. Vedo guardando le sue partite, vedo i numeri del grande giocatore, come ha fatto vedere nelle partite che fece qui in Italia nel Mondiale 90, dove aveva veramente entusiasmato un po' tutti, però non è molto continuo.
Gascoigne and Riva are, of course, fundamentally different people, both on and off the field. Riva is a player from a simpler age of football, who now just happens to find himself in the middle of one of Europe's most advanced soccer programs with the Azzurri of Sacchi. How does he see the difference in styles between play today and in his day?
C'era un tipo di calcio praticamente diverso nell'epoca nostra, cioè difese più bloccate, squadra che giocava più sul contropiede. Questa invece è una squadra che gioca a zona, pratica degli schemi ben prefissi, credo ci sia molta differenza. Ma forse c'era più tecnica, qui c'è più aggressività, più preparazione atletica, sicuramente molto più ritmo. Io sono stato bene in quella vecchia, così come punta penso sarei stato anche bene in questa nuova, perché propone magari più gioco offensivo.
Well, everyone agrees that they don't make them like Gigi Riva anymore, but Italy does have 2 bright young goal-scoring hopes, Giuseppe Signori and Roberto Baggio. Here's what they think of him and he thinks of them.
È un grandissimo giocatore, potente, col sinistro che non perdonava.
Riva è stato un grandissimo del calcio italiano, ha fatto 35 gol in 42 partite. Una media spaventosa, per cui è un traguardo difficilissimo da raggiungere.
Il loro valore in nazionale, signori vincendo la classifica dei cannonieri, quindi mi pare che siano sicuramente i giocatori simbolo, i cannonieri simbolo di questa stagione.
Last year's great Italian bomber was Gianluca Vialli, but since January he hasn't really been heard of. What do you think he's going through?
Vialli è ancora il bomber in assoluto, solo che sta attraversando un momento delicato, diciamo che forse è andato di pari passo così con i problemi che ha avuto nella sua squadra, è stato trasformato da prima punta a seconda punta, adesso attualmente gioca anche a centrocampo, quindi ha bisogno di ritrovare fiducia, ma soprattutto la squadra che gli dia una mano, che gli dia una mano di aiuto.
Baggio?
fantastico, forse sicuramente il giocatore più quotato in assoluto che è il calcio italiano.
Why did the great Gigi Riva never become a coach?
Perché ci vuole un tipo di carattere particolare, poi quando uno ha giocato 15 anni a calcio a livello professionistico, ha fatto valigie per 15 anni non ha più voglia di passare così a fare la vita da zingaro, passando da Palermo a Udine, a Milano, a Torino. Direi che non era un lavoro adatto a me.
Well then, with a rumble of thunder, Gigi Riva was off to join Arrigo Sacchi and the Italian national team in their preparations for this afternoon's match against Switzerland. Of course, with that international game, there's no Serie A action here in Italy tomorrow, and by consequence, no live game tomorrow
on Channel 4. We'll be back next week with Gazzetta Football Italia on Saturday morning, and amongst other things, we'll have highlights of that Switzerland-Italy game. See you then.
And that's it for today. And don't forget that if you're not lucky enough to win our competition, tickets are still available for the European Cup Winners' Cup final to be played at Wembley on Wednesday, May the 12th. And there's another major event 2 days earlier, the London Five-a-Sides at Wembley Arena, complete with a very special guest.
Well, I'm going to be in London, the Five-a-Sides at Wembley Arena, May the 10th. Don't miss it.